If you needed me, I would come.
These are the 10 country legends who died too young, and the songs, the heartbreak, and the legacies they left behind.
I'm ready, so we can go steady.
Number 10. Hank Williams, Montgomery, Alabama, late 1940s. A skinny kid with a guitar too big for his frame, and a voice that sounded like it had already lived 3 lifetimes of heartbreak. His name was Hiram, but the world would come to know him as Hank Williams. Nashville's old guard didn't know what to do with him. His honky-tonk twang was considered too raw for polished radio playlists, and more than one Opry executive doubted a voice that cracked with pain could ever sell records. He was fired from the Grand Ole Opry in 1952 for chronic unreliability, chronic pain, chronic drinking, chronic missed shows. By the end, promoters were booking him and praying he'd show up sober enough to finish the set. So how does a man fired from country music's biggest stage become its most enduring voice? What did Nashville miss about him that the rest of America somehow understood? And then, on the first morning of 1953, it all went silent.
I got a hot rod Ford and a $2 bill.
Hank Williams was found dead in the back of his powder blue Cadillac in Oak Hill, West Virginia, on New Year's Day, just 29 years old, on his way to a show he'd never play. But the songs didn't stop traveling.
So if you want to have fun, come along with me. Say, hey.
Your Cheatin' Heart was released after his death and became one of the defining records of the decade. Radio stations that once hesitated to play him now couldn't stop. Hank Williams became the first true superstar of modern country music.
Buy me one for 5 or 10 cents. I'll keep it till it's covered with.
A foundational influence claimed by everyone from Johnny Cash to George Jones to Bob Dylan. He was posthumously inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1961, one of its first members.
Have fun, come along with me. Say, hey, good looking.
He wrote about loneliness so well because he lived inside it, and he never got to hear how loudly the world would finally answer him back.
What you got cooking? How's about cooking something?
Number 9. Patsy Cline. A voice like a cracked bell. Beautiful, aching, impossible to ignore.
Midnight, out in the moonlight.
Virginia Patterson Hensley grew up singing in Winchester, Virginia, dreaming of a stage that, for years, refused to make room for her.
The starlight, just hoping you may be.
Early in her career, Patsy Cline was boxed in, told a woman's voice couldn't carry a country hit the way a man's could, pushed toward material that didn't fit her. Her first singles barely dented the charts.
For me.
She spent years fighting label executives just to record the kind of aching, string-laced ballads she knew, deep down, were right for her voice. So what changed? What finally convinced Nashville to trust her instincts?
I stopped to see you.
It took a near-fatal car accident, a hospital bed, and a song nobody wanted to give her a chance.
We're walking after midnight.
In 1961, still recovering from injuries, Patsy Cline recorded Crazy, a Willie Nelson composition she almost didn't take. It became a crossover sensation, climbing high on both the country and pop charts, and reshaping what a female country vocalist was allowed to be. Patsy Cline became one of the first women to headline major country tours and the first female solo artist inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Then, on March 5, 1963, her plane went down in bad weather near Camden, Tennessee. She was only 30 years old. She spent her whole career fighting to be heard, and now her voice is one of the few that never fades.
You may be somewhere a-walking after
Number 8. Johnny Horton. By the late 1950s, Johnny Horton had already lived several careers: rockabilly hopeful, honky-tonk regular, journeyman singer, bouncing between labels that couldn't figure out what to do with him. His early records went nowhere. Critics called his sound scattered, not quite rockabilly, not quite traditional country. Radio programmers passed. For a stretch, Horton was better known as Hank Williams' friend and eventual widower of Billie Jean Jones than as an artist in his own right. So, what turned a nearly forgotten singer into one of the biggest names of 1959? A song about a battle nobody thought belonged on country radio changed everything.
Your last stand, you marched into battle with the gray.
The Battle of New Orleans, a folk history novelty about the War of 1812, became a monster hit, topping both the country and pop charts and selling millions of copies.
Yeah, you fought all the way, Johnny Red.
Horton followed it with more saga songs, North to Alaska among them, becoming country music's unlikely king of the story song.
All the way, Johnny Red, Johnny Red. You fought all the way.
He was at the peak of his career, riding chart success most artists never touch, when tragedy cut it short. On November 5, 1960, Johnny Horton was killed in a car crash in Milano, Texas, just 35 years old. Eerily, driving home from the same Louisiana venue where Hank Williams had played one of his final shows. He finally found his sound, right before the road took him. Proof that sometimes the breakthrough and the goodbye arrive far too close together. Number 7. Keith Whitley. Kentucky-born, bluegrass-raised, Keith Whitley had one of the purest traditional voices of the 1980s.
Stranger to the rain.
The kind that made hardened Nashville producers stop what they were doing. And still, for years, the industry didn't know what to do with him. His early albums leaned too far into slick production for traditionalists and too far into old-school twang for pop radio. Labels shuffled his sound multiple times, chasing a hit that kept slipping past him.
I'm no stranger to the rain.
So why did it take almost a decade for Nashville to finally get out of his way? And just as the hits started coming, the demons that had followed him his whole career caught up.
I can spot bad weather, and I'm good at fighting.
In 1988 and 1989, Whitley finally broke through, with Don't Close Your Eyes becoming his first number one and I'm No Stranger to the Rain following soon after.
I may drown, but it's hard.
Records now considered some of the finest traditional country vocals ever committed to tape. He was being called the future of the genre, a bridge between old Nashville and new.
Tonight it's really coming down.
Then, on May 9th, 1989, Keith Whitley died of acute alcohol poisoning at his home in Nashville. He was 33.
What am I feeling now? If I don't.
He spent his life chasing the sound in his head, and just as the world caught up to it, he was gone.
We'll borrow a little sunshine.
If these stories are bringing back memories, hit subscribe, because there's a lot more country music history still waiting to be told. But the next story changed the sound of an entire generation. Number 6. Mindy McCready. In 1996, a 21-year-old from Fort Myers, Florida, walked into Nashville with a voice built for arenas and a debut single, Guys Do It All the Time. that shot straight to #1.
You'll never know how much I miss you.
But behind the early success was a career the industry and the public never let her control. Tabloids fixated on her personal life more than her music.
I'll always love you.
Label pressure and public scrutiny mounted fast, and by the early 2000s, the hits had dried up even as the headlines multiplied. So what happens to a star when the world decides her story is worth more than her songs? For years, she tried to fight her way back into the conversation on her own terms. In 2010, Mindy McCready appeared on Celebrity Rehab, using the platform with painful honesty to talk about addiction and mental health, reintroducing herself not as a tabloid fixture, but as a survivor trying to reclaim her narrative.
You'll never know, I'll never find another.
For a moment, it looked like a genuine second act. She continued recording and performing, and fans who'd followed her since 10,000 Angels rallied behind her. But on February 17, 2013, Mindy McCready died by suicide at her home in Arkansas. She was 37.
Yeah, I'll always love you.
She gave country radio one of its biggest debuts of the 90s and spent the rest of her life fighting battles the charts never showed.
Thing that you can't read my mind.
Number 5. Joey Feek. Joey Martin grew up in Alexandria, Indiana, singing in church long before she ever dreamed of Nashville. Paired with husband Rory Feek as Joey plus Rory, their sound was pure, unhurried, old-fashioned in the best way.
Needed me, I would come to you.
For years, the duo built their career the hard way, touring small venues, competing on Can You Duet in 2008, slowly earning an audience that mainstream country radio was slow to embrace. Their stripped-down, front porch style didn't fit the increasingly polished, pop-leaning sound dominating the charts at the time.
Of love, you will
So how did a couple singing simple, homespun songs about faith and family end up winning a Grammy? Then, just as their career reached new heights, life delivered the cruelest twist imaginable. In 2014, shortly after the birth of their daughter Indiana, Joey was diagnosed with cervical cancer. As her health declined, the couple continued sharing their story publicly, and their final album, Hymns That Are Important to Us, resonated with an audience far beyond their existing fan base.
ease your pain.
That record won the Grammy for Best Roots Gospel Album. Joey Feek passed away on March 4, 2016, at just 40 years old, having spent her final months turning unimaginable grief into some of the most quietly powerful music of her career.
Come to me for to ease my
She never chased the spotlight. The spotlight found her, right when she needed it to carry her voice the furthest.
come to me. Would you come?
Number 4. Justin Carter. By 2018, Justin Carter was one of Texas country's fastest rising names, a Blanco-born singer with a growing following and a sound built for the dancehall circuit that raised him.
And I believe in some things, they're worth it.
Carter hadn't yet broken into the national mainstream. He was grinding the way most rising Texas artists do. Small venues, regional radio, slowly building buzz one show at a time. Still years away from the kind of recognition his talent seemed destined for.
Killing voices, you don't deserve it.
So what happens when an artist's story ends before the world ever gets to hear the whole thing? Then, on August 3rd, 2018, everything stopped. Justin Carter died in an accidental shooting in Cypress Mill, Texas. He was only 35.
The other end about to break.
Weeks later, his song, Love and War, recorded before his death, was released, and it became a posthumous hit on Texas country radio, carrying his voice forward in a way he never got to witness.
Lord knows that I'm far from
Fans and fellow Texas artists rallied around his memory, turning Love and War into an anthem of loss within the tight-knit Texas country scene, proof of the career that was just beginning to take shape.
'cause I'm so
He was still writing the first chapter of his story when it ended, and the song that made him known is the one he never got to sing to a sold-out crowd. Number 3. Kylie Ray Harris. A songwriter built her career the unglamorous way, writing for other artists, touring relentlessly, slowly carving space for her own voice in a crowded Texas and red dirt scene. Recognition came slowly. She spent years as a working musician rather than a headliner, releasing independent records that built a loyal, if modest, following. Real commercial breakthrough remained just out of reach. So what does it take for a road-worn artist to finally get her moment? And then, tragically, the moment came only after she was gone. On September 4, 2019, Kylie Ray Harris died in a car accident in Taos, New Mexico. She was 30 years old. In the wake of her death, her music found a far larger audience than it ever had during her lifetime, as fans and fellow artists shared her songs and her story. Her final single, 20 Years From Now, took on a haunting new resonance, becoming an unofficial tribute anthem within the Texas country community. A song about looking back on life that she never got the chance to. She wrote about time slipping away, never knowing how little of it she actually had left. Number 2. Justin Townes Earle, son of alt-country icon Steve Earle, named after songwriting legend Townes Van Zandt.
drowned alive.
Justin Townes Earle carried a heavy legacy and spent his career proving he could stand entirely on his own.
Get back to the night where it all began.
That inheritance was also a burden. Critics constantly measured him against his father's shadow, and Earle battled addiction publicly for years, including a 2010 arrest after a chaotic performance that nearly derailed his career entirely. So how does an artist claw his way out from under a famous name and his own demons to find real critical respect? And just as he found his footing, his past caught up with him one final time.
But I'm trying to move on.
Through the 2010s, Earle released a string of acclaimed albums: Harlem River Blues, Single Mothers, Kids in the Street, earning a reputation as one of Americana's most gifted, literate songwriters.
This is where we're going to, baby.
Finally recognized entirely on his own terms, critics who once dismissed him as a famous name's son were now calling him one of his generation's defining voices.
She says one more drop of rain. She swears.
On August 20th, 2020, Justin Townes Earle died of an accidental drug overdose in Nashville. He was 38.
I could go back to New York City, I guess, and just
He spent his whole career trying to outrun a name, and in the end, he earned the right to be remembered simply as himself.
and we both pretend we don't know why.
Number 1. Jim Reeves. Texas-born Jim Reeves started as a baseball prospect and radio DJ before a velvet-smooth baritone turned him into one of the defining voices of the Nashville sound. Early in his career, Reeves' polished, string-laden style drew skepticism from honky-tonk purists who felt he was drifting too far from country's rougher roots. Some traditionalists dismissed his sound as too pop, too soft, too far from the genre's origins to be taken seriously.
For 100,000 reasons.
So how did Too Smooth for Country become the sound that redefined the entire genre? Then came a song that crossed over in a way almost nobody in Nashville expected.
I know your love will always.
In 1960, He'll Have to Go became a massive crossover hit, reaching the top of the country charts and climbing high on the pop charts as well, cementing Reeves as one of the architects of the smoother, more polished Nashville sound that would come to dominate the decade.
I love you.
Reeves became an international star, wildly popular not just across the United States, but in South Africa, the UK, and beyond. Then, on July 31st, 1964, his small plane crashed in bad weather just outside Nashville. He was 40 years old.
Every single thing I.
His voice helped build modern country music, and he never lived to see just how far that sound would travel.
I love you because my.
10 voices, 10 unfinished stories, different decades, different sounds, different roads, that all ended the same way, too soon.